Hi everyone. Welcome back to Sold Out Chat, the gathering for marketing experts and organizational leaders that want to get to sold out status. I'm Kay,
And I'm Ollie.
and we are the marketing associates here at Above Promotions. In our last episode, we discussed how you could stand out in the marketplace with Dr. Darna and our CEO, Ebony Vaz. Today, we'll discuss sharing your cybersecurity culture with your customers with our special guest for this month. But before we start, for those joining us for the first time, each month we will cover tools, innovations, policies, and strategies to help brands sell out of products or reach capacity with your booth services. For today's chat, we will be joined by Ebony Vaz and special guest Joey Mauler Hernandez. Ebony is the founder and CEO of Above Promotions and one of the few marketers in the world with an engineering degree and published research focused on human behaviors and statistical data. As cybersecurity becomes increasingly important in the business world, having a strong culture of cybersecurity within your organization is essential. Today's discussion will focus on sharing your cybersecurity culture with your customers. We'll be exploring the benefits of doing so and the best practices. Before we dive in and introduce our special guest, I urge you to stay to the end for valuable upcoming opportunities. So be sure to listen all the way through for the details.
All right. And as mentioned, we have a special guest this month. Joey Mauler Hernandez is the program lead for incident management retainers for SecureWorks, ensuring the delivery of actionable, intelligence-driven information security solutions for clients worldwide. He's also the author of both the Ransomware Defense Manual and the Cyber Insurance Survival Guide, Cybersecurity. Books focused on helping small and medium enterprises in their pursuit to defend and minimize their cyber attack surface. Part-time, Joe is also a U.S. Air Force field grade officer, currently supporting cyber capability development efforts to support 12th Air Force, Southern Partner, and allies. Hi, Joey. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here today, especially to talk about this subject. Appreciate the intro. Thank you.
Yay. I'm so glad that you are here, Joey. One of my favorite cybersecurity folks. And I actually have his book for the listeners. So for those of you that are interested in keeping track with some of the cybersecurity topics, make sure you grab that book from Joey because it's worth the read and worth the guidance as well.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, we can start with the questions, right? And first things first, how do you define cybersecurity culture?
Great question. It's interesting when I think about culture and probably the common definition is, the way an organization or a group of people, their behaviors, their beliefs, and the way they value things. And when it comes to cybersecurity, I'd like to think about it in the sense too of adding the aspects of the people, processes, and technologies that an organization use, right? So that culture and really how you convey that to your organization. Why is it important to us? How do we minimize the attack surface? What do we keep protected, understanding our critical information, our critical systems, and our critical people within an organization? I think that's that culture that we have to define in an organization to make it better understandable, and so people understand what they're really trying to protect.
Yeah, I agree. I think that with cybersecurity culture, it's one of those things like that when people who are not focused on security for the organization, they tend to find themselves tuning out. They tend to find themselves thinking it's not their
Mm-hmm.
problem. And I think when we talk about culture, it's so important for us to realize that it's not limited to just the IT folk. And it's not limited to just those people who actually touch data, but it's actually building this culture, building this ecosystem, building this connection between all of the team members and being able to say, like, this is not just one person's role, but it's everybody's role. It affects everyone, making sure we get this right. So I think that's another aspect and a layer when we think about cybersecurity culture.
Definitely. And one of the interesting things that I'm glad you said that. One of the interesting things that we do from the organization I work with, SecureWorks, is when we do training or we do exercises, we really tell them, hey, bring in some of those people, bring in the HR, bring in the finance lead, bring in your accounting team, some of those folks to understand, because as they start seeing how something unravels, they start to have insight to the protection, the required, the times, the so what of getting an organization to go back to business as usual, and how important the data is. It's it's really interesting. When we think about something as simple as saying, "Hey, we need to do a password reset," and people say, "Okay, that's quickly. I've done that before on my own system." But when you got to do that and propagate that across 1,000 people in an organization, that could take days, right? So yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they say that truly it's best to not even use the word cybersecurity when you're trying to um,
Mhm.
preach culture, because people tend to tune out just that word. I don't know, for some reason they feel like it's just not something that's a part of what is important to them and their aspect, etc. So
Very true.
All right. Well, we were talking earlier about like HR inside the organization, and we also wanted to know about customers as well. Like, how can a business share its cybersecurity culture with its customers in a meaningful way?
It's the follow on really is it's a marketing thing, right? We brag as organizations, we like to brag about all the wins that we have, but when it comes to something about security, it turns into that it's a weird dynamic, right? We don't speak about the wins there, you know, not enhancing that information on our websites, talking about the privacy, the things that we're doing in the 10K filings, this the SEC filings for an organization, talking about the you know what they're doing to protect their information and share that with your clients, right? Speak to the
yeah,
successes that you had, and of course I'll use banking as doing the work from Infogard as a financial sector uh, chief there, from the finance side, like, hey, show what's happening elsewhere in the environment, and what you're doing to protect, and the fact that you know about these things ahead of time.
yeah. The funny thing is, like you said, it really is a marketing thing, which is one of the things we do over here. But it's funny that people think about, let's build trust and being able to perform the work, but they forget about the fact that you can build trust by showing people how much you are protecting their data, and that you're taking those precautions to make sure that you have their data and their privacy in mind. Giving a chance to show your customers that you're open and transparent about your cybersecurity practices is really a good look. I mean, it's a really good way to build trust through the sales cycle, and then even just upskilling or upselling when you're trying to upsell your current customers, like building that level of trust that they can rely on you, because they have their own issues and they're already working with probably 20 to 50 other vendors. And so knowing that some of their vendors are actually taking that chance and being proactive and communicating with what that culture is. And of course, we're not saying you should say exactly what your cybersecurity stack looks like. We're not telling you to say, like, we've got people open from 9 to 9 and nobody's protecting from 9 to other 9. We're not saying
Yeah.
that at all. But
It,
we're saying that you have to communicate some level that you have security practices in mind.
when you were talking, I'm just thinking, hopefully some of your listeners who have that entrepreneurial spirit will look into this and go, hey, there's a great business opportunity. You know how we used to, maybe some folks still use it, but the Better Business Bureau. So imagine, and
Oh yeah.
you go to websites and you have the logo there that show that imagine having one that shows,
Yes.
hey, we have the cyber trust piece
Yes.
embedded. That's another piece that would be, hey, look, I mean, it's trust, right? And so by
Yes.
talking to your clients, I think that helps out. That's good.
Yeah. And it's funny is because, we our audience and spans different levels, and we have small business, medium, and large enterprises. And so when we have those startups that are growing and they're thinking about going public, I'm so glad that you mentioned, because those SEC filings, that's an important part of speaking to that cybersecurity in there. So you can't get rid of it. You can't avoid it. And when you're building your business, you really just have to make sure that you're developing that culture.
Definitely.
I love that. Thank you. And also, we wanted to know, like, what are the benefits of developing and sharing a cybersecurity culture with customers?
Oh, trust. It's your trust. I think we spoke a little bit about that, but trust is like the number one. Because if somebody feels that they can, I mean, it's like with relationships and friendships, right? If somebody feels that they can call on you and you've shared enough information to build that backbone and foundation with them, you know, and you do that through the communication, right? And probably every interaction you have with them, and that capability can pay dividends. You'll have people returning as customers. They'll understand that relationship, that culture that you have in your organization is actually spread to them. It's infectious when you start looking at the way that organizations can help protect each other and show me how it, show them how important their information, their business is to you, and how that actually lays into any of their additional customers, right? The tertiary effects of that, sharing that information, you can't lose.
Yeah. I think the other benefit is like improved compliance, not only within your organization, because once you tell someone you're doing something, you got to start doing it, right? Yourself. So I
Yeah.
think it improves your compliance within your own organization, but it also, you're bringing forth discussions to your clients, and that they may not be having right now, and that happens with us a lot. We're constantly sharing things that, like, hey, this particular client, they ended up getting it has some issues with gift cards, and you might not want to offer gift cards in this particular manner. You might want to offer this, and this is why, because hey, California is doing this, Virginia is doing this, Colorado, we've got all these states popping up with all these laws, not even talking about crossing over and outside of the country.
Yeah.
So I think that you end up having this other benefit of improved compliance, not only for your organization, but you're able to share what you're doing, which also helps your client to do better, because you don't want to misappropriate their information, but you don't want them doing something wrong or not completely helping to protect yours as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And leading off of that, we most recently there's been a lot of concern of what AI, machine learning, and things, the simple language aspects of like Chat GPT. And so if your organization is looking into things like that and realizing that, hey, there's not really any new attack vectors, but business email compromise and spear phishing things are going to be more tailored, more customized, and they're not going to have the same grammatical errors and as easy to catch as they used to be. And you share that because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that you're discovering internally. You share that with your customers, then they're looking into it. They start to look after these same problem sets and try to increase their awareness of what's going on.
Oh yeah, and that's a good point. Which I mean, I don't even want to sidetrack us, but I still have yet to understand in this day and age of Grammarly, Hemingway, and all these apps, why we're getting misspelled phishing emails. But that's another story.
Yeah, it's bulk, right? All you need to do is get
Yeah,
one. That's the bad thing about the
yeah,
adversary. They just need to get
that's
one.
true. You just need one. You just need one. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, so speaking of those benefits, and we also have trust, this one is also tied with that. How can businesses ensure their cybersecurity culture is properly communicated to their customers?
Information sharing, right? Be an open book whenever possible. And I say whenever possible because I think Ebony hit on that earlier. We can't tell them everything, but at the same time, right? If other of course, I'm sticking to the financial sector from that aspect. If other banks in the environment are being hit, share a message with your team and say, hey, not your team, but your clients, and say, hey, we understand that there's been some breach at a different financial institution. We're well aware of this, and we're doing protective measures and that kind of information. Share that, right? You don't want to badmouth another organization, but at the same time, let your folks be aware that you're looking into those things. Because
Yeah.
the way we look at threats is not often always the right way. Very often, and I think we've talked about this before, is that sometimes people say, oh, these are bank threats. No, they're not bank threats. They're infrastructure threat. It's a common threat, the most likely, the most dangerous that's going to occur. And so we want to make sure that if you share it in that aspect, sometimes it's helpful to those entities that rely on you for support.
Hmm. And I agree. I one of the things that I particularly like I've communicated with our clients. You can expect communication to come in this manner. You're not going to get a text message coming back and forth with us. You're not going to get, we're not going to ask you for information that is a part of a project via text. We're not going to. So we have like very certain standards that we set with the customer to let them know, like, if you're going to get something from us, it's going to come a little differently than what the process that we've laid out. Question it,
Mm-hmm.
completely question it. And even if it's in the process that we've laid out, still question it, because if it's outside of the scope of what we're looking for, we're trust, you don't pay us to do everything else, so we're not going to ask you for everything else. So
Yeah.
I think it's very beneficial to set this expectation. And one of the things that I like is, like, with one of the large energy companies that we have here in the state, they sent out an email and they're like, look, just like you said, we're aware that some issues have happened with this other energy company. Um, Understand from us, you are only going to get correspondence in this manner from our organization. We will never ask you via text to send us a payment. We will never ask you. So I think it's that level of setting of expectations. You know what is the best way to protect your business's information, and you know how you put in place to protect your customers. So it's important to communicate to them, like, how you will communicate, how you will process, how you will move forward. So then that way there's very, I mean, let's face it, some people just are really good at engineering, social engineering,
Mm-hmm.
but you can at least mitigate by communicating, like, the avenues that you'll typically communicate or ask for certain information.
Yeah. Golden. Over communicating is key, and they just have to listen. That's awesome.
All right. Well, we have this question, Joey, and you're probably the best person for this one. And we want to know, like, what lessons can businesses learn from government organizations concerning cybersecurity culture? And what can the government learn from the private businesses?
Good, good, good question, right? So I've been working with the government now for going on 28 years in different capacities, from working with cabinet agencies to military to even foreign governments. And I think what we can learn on the commercial side, if you will, is structure and frameworks. And I say that because the government spends years working on structures and frameworks. I mean, matter of fact, they're working in this CMMC framework right now for organizations that support the government, and that's been delayed and delayed and delayed right now at the national level. And what they do try on the government side, they try to incorporate state issues, federal issues, some guidelines from global aspects, and so it's all encompassing. And they usually have a lot of people working on the documents and numerous cycles of check this out, give us your feedback, let's go back to the drawing board, make some changes, that kind of stuff, which we don't have on the commercial side because of the fact that time is money in a different sense, right? And so, if I think about what the government side can learn, we need to learn to really focus on the government side on timelines, right? So it's the good and the bad of both sides. Having worked on those different levels of multiple tiers, I've left organizations and come back, or I've met somebody later on and we start, reminiscing about something I worked at it when I worked in their organization, and they tell me something they worked 3 years later and it's the same project, right? So we need to, turn things into projects, right? Have a start and an end for some of those things. But creating those plans of action and milestones and then move, thinking that there's a bottom line would hopefully help some of these things move faster. But I think that it's a good environment for both sides to gain some aspects.
I laughed when you said CMMC because I can't even remember when it started now. It's been going on for so long. And I laugh because you're right. The government is so good at framework, but on the flip side, it does take them a long time to implement that. And I'm thinking back to a colleague that we have created a whole business model around it, and unfortunately, they had to desert that business model because they still haven't finished and figured out CMMC. So I completely agree, because when I think about just from my engineering studies, just from working on different projects, there are so many practices that are in place because of the military, because of that ability to be able to execute mass scale. But you're right, it's like the time it takes. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. And it's funny, I leveraged that when you talked about the books, and appreciate that conversation. But that's what I kind of leveraged for those documents. I tried to turn, both my commercial hat, if you will, and my government hat to say, okay, here's the guidance. Okay, turn everything that's in that guidance into a actionable task, because it was like, there's this turnover that has to occur when you're doing these things. And I think, tying the government with the commercial side would be great. Wonderful conference if we ever get it right.
Facts.
And I think our listeners learned something from that answer. So thank you. And let's go to the next question. Like, what are the potential risks of not sharing a cybersecurity culture with customers?
So interesting, right? In this case, I think, this is where the squeaky wheel gets the business, both sides, right? If you think about it from an offensive and defensive standpoint, we hold security very close to reduce potential threats, right? That someone's going to try to test if you say, hey, we've done a great job in securing this organization and to protect and defend it. And then people will try to make attempts to understand key processes from that. But the biggest risk is that it's going to happen to somebody else, right? We try to take this aspect in physical security, right? Hey, we're going to put cameras, we're going to do these things, we're going to provide reports, we're going to do alerts, we're going to provide Amber alerts, all this kind of thing but on the cybersecurity side, when we move back to this non-kinetic, if you will, this virtual realm, we don't want to share everything. And if we don't share it, less people get an opportunity to understand it. And then we got to stop sharing it at a level of whether it be, highly, confidential to an organization or classified to the government, because a lot of these things are going to impact everyone. And maybe on a large commercial entity or government side, it may not be that impactful, but that same threat hitting, a household or a local community bank or a small energy company could be really devastating, and ripple effects could be bad. So we got to not only look at it from a standpoint of just ourselves, we have to open it up and open the aperture to look at what this potential threat could do if it was on a different environment. So we have to share information.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have, for us, we focus on crisis preparedness, right? That's our focus. We want to make sure that we have the communications set for when an incident happens. And to me, one of the biggest potential risk is people aren't ready. They are caught off guard, their customers are caught off guard, and it's taken them a long time to respond and get a response out to the customers, to have a response for your internal people. I think that one of the biggest things that I have seen in my time in this area is that people are not communicating internally, and because they're not prepared, when you have this incident happen, you have a lot of misinformation even happening within your organization. And I've seen it when that information has leaked out of the organization and to the public or to other vendors. And once that's happened, then they started to lose customers. They started to lose those vendors because you might be low on the totem pole and this whole thing of their social engineering to this big fish. And you might be that person who could hurt one of your customers who might be doing business with the government. Your customer might have a project with the DoD, DHS. And because you're not prepared internally, you don't have your communications together, your teams aren't talking together. You're like Joey said earlier, accounting is not being pulled in to the conversations. That's a problem. And so for us, we're always talking about the crisis communications, being prepared, making sure the right people are at those tabletop exercises and that you're doing them often. And just thinking about the whole compliance issue and are you reporting in time and all that stuff. I mean, these reporting deadlines, I think they're going to keep getting shorter and shorter, to be honest with you. I don't know what you think, Joy, but I think at some point they're going to expect these reporting times to really be more real time for people as we come up.
No, definitely. And people need to be able to understand that, the people being hit with this kind of activity need to be able to understand to pull in, an organization such as yours to be able to help them understand what's the so what does this mean from a internal communication, external communication, lateral communication, and then how to do that, right? So them leveraging you for those kind of things, and with the timelines especially, right? It's difficult for the clientele, the end user, if you will, to follow that these things are changing, reporting an incident within 72 hours of when it was detected. Then you get people playing gaming that like, well, did we detect it yet? Do we really know it's this creepy? And so it's good for them to reach out, like I said, and to someone externally who's gonna, they give them hey, this is the real deal. This is what you have to follow, and this is how these are the words you have to use. Yeah, the risk is there, but we just have to work harder at getting ahead of it by sharing information and being open when we can. I think you hit it right. When we can.
Yeah, when we can. When we can. When it's not detrimental, let's be open.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Joey, we're on to our last question. So, what proactive measures can businesses take to ensure their customers know their cybersecurity culture?
Get them involved, right? Like it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I think we alluded to that a little bit. If you have something ongoing, let's say you're going to send some of your security people to a conference, and you can get an extra ticket to have one of the people that you work with that you're engaging from a client side. Have them go. I mean, looking at things, this is where people will be open and have that. But that's from the external time. Look into, as I talked about in the very beginning, right? The people, processes, and technology. Let them understand how you're doing things, what we're doing. Hey, we've just started using this CRM, and they may have some insight. You may get some insight from them, what they're using, what they're looking on the side of the tech, and even being part of their boards. I mean, not in the sense of from the business side board, but hey, they want to do an interview for somebody, or you want to do an interview for somebody. Ask them if they have any specific questions. That collaboration goes a long way of feeling like you're part of the family, if you will. And I think that's simple enough from a security side, because as Ebony talked to earlier, people don't like the word, right? Cybersecurity. And so, I mean, it's simple as saying this is not cybersecurity. This is information, protecting your information, right? Using these nicer words so that People aren't fearful of technical things that aren't even involved in the processes sometimes.
Yeah, I I agree. I think if we focus on, using the words data and privacy, I
Mhm.
think that makes people feel a little bit more like, okay, I can grasp that. But I don't know, people start seeing ones and zeros when you say cybersecurity.
Yes, yes, they do.
I think of that GIF where the character from uh what was it, The Hangover, and it has like those equations floating around his
What
head.
is
Every
that?
time I think about that, every
Yes.
time I say cybersecurity people, it's like, okay, I can see the mathematical formulas floating around their head.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that I like doing is I really do like taking some of the complex things and making it very simple for people to understand and to follow and to want to become engaged in it. And so that's one of the reasons like I really enjoyed having you come on, because we just, we talk in general about all this stuff,
Mhm.
outside of course today, being part of Infracard and just the cybersecurity community here in the Tampa, Florida area. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. And I know we're at the 30-minute mark, so I'll let Kay take it away.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your insights, Joey and Ebony. So, just want to share it quickly that even with above promotions, Ebony made sure she shared with us our cybersecurity culture upon onboarding. So it was really great because there are really people who would send you spam emails, and there will
Mhm.
be times that you wouldn't notice if you are not well informed. So what a session today. We really highlighted the importance of educating customers about your cybersecurity culture and how it can contribute to the overall security of your data. So, by sharing your cybersecurity culture with your customers, you provide them with the knowledge and resources they need to protect their data. So, we hope this discussion has been helpful and that you now have the knowledge to build a secure and effective cybersecurity culture. So, we were able to cover what is cybersecurity culture, sharing your cybersecurity culture in a meaningful way, benefits of developing and sharing your cybersecurity culture, ensuring your cybersecurity culture is properly communicated, things you can learn from the government organizations and what the government can learn from private businesses, potential risk of not sharing your cybersecurity culture, and lastly, proactive measures you can take. So, we can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom with us today, Ebony and Joey. So, we also want to thank those that tuned in. If you joined us late, do not worry. We will have this recording available on our website, abovepromotions.com. If you want to ask any question for the upcoming chat, please do send us a message. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, you missed a couple of these upcoming opportunities. So you can join the upcoming workshops with Ebony Vaz. We have different workshops that will suit your marketing needs. Gain sales by finding your target market for B2B happening on July 18th and for B2C on July 19th. And creating a marketing budget on July 25th. Please check abovepromotions.com/training for more information about these workshops. Next month, we'll discuss removing ineffective marketing tools and strategies. Stay tuned to our website, abovepromotions.com, for the announcement of our upcoming topics. Thank you.